Hello, my name is Doug Boebinger, and I appreciate you taking a few minutes of your time for me to walk you through the application process for the Project Management Institute's PMP, Project Management Professional Certification. PMI was founded in 1969 and is the primary professional association for project management internationally. PMI is established to promote and provide project management standards, seminars, and education programs, and they have a number of various professional certifications that they offer. But the premier certification is PMP, Project Management Professional. You can learn more about PMI on their website at pmi.org. I'm going to talk about the PMP certification application process, but I want to take a few minutes of your time to talk about CAPM, or what some people refer to as CAPM. And CAPM, it was primarily intended when it was launched about 2 decades ago, primarily intended for those people who are coming out of college and university and who did not have enough experience to apply for, sit, and achieve PMP certification. For CAPM, you need a high school diploma or better, and you need either 1,500 hours of experience working on projects or 23 contact hours of project management education. The exam is shorter and it's easier than the PMP. And the CAPM was meant and is meant as a stepping stone to PMP certification. The premier certification for project management worldwide is Project Management Professional, PMP. And there are 2 paths that you can take to achieve your PMP. If you have a bachelor's degree or better, then you need 36 months of experience, non-overlapping experience working on projects over the last 3 to 8 years, and 4,500 hours. If you don't have a bachelor's degree or equivalent, but you have a high school diploma or equivalent, then you just need more experience and more hours. So you need more months. You need 60 months and 7,500 hours over the last 5 to 8 years. PMI wants the certification to be current, so you can only go back a total of 8 years. So even if you have 15 years of experience, the application will only allow you to go back a total of 8 years. If you're working on a project that started 9 years ago and ended 7 years ago, put the dates in, but PMI will only give you credit for the last year itself. The exam is 3 hours and 50 minutes long. It's 180 questions, and I did another video on the changes that have occurred on the exam as of January 2nd of 2021. So if you're interested in hearing about those changes, seek out the other video. When PMI talks about non-overlapping experience, what they're referring to is if you were to put in project 1 for 2 months, then you would get 2 total months of experience working on that project. Then if you had a month where you were not working on a project, obviously you would not get credit for that. And then when you put in project number 2, which took 3 months, you would get 3 months of experience credit for that, for a total of 5. However, when you put in project 3, since the first 2 months overlap that of project 2, you will not get incremental credit for those 2 months, but you will get credit for the last 2 months. Basically, put in your projects. I tell people to start with the larger projects first. Put those in. Put the date that you started and the date that you finished working on the project, and the application will track how many months of credit you have achieved and how many more months of credit you still need. Once you meet the minimum credit requirements, then the application will not let you add any more projects in. The hours will sum totally. So if you worked on project 2 project 2 in month 5, and you worked in project 3 in month 5, you will get credit for both of those hours, both sets of hours. So if you put in 50 hours on project 2 and 50 hours on project 3, you'd get 100 hours of credit for that. However, they are not asking for the hours as part of the base application, and I'll go into that in a few minutes. The process itself does take time to go through, and when you go to PMI.org and you get your user ID and password, then you have 90 days in order to complete the application once you've started the application process itself. PMI, once you hit the submit button, PMI takes about 5 days to review the application. And then there are 2 possible options. The first option is that you get audited. If you don't get audited, then you can circumvent that process and move forward from there. About 10% of the people get audited. If you do get the audit, then they will send you an email and outline the requirements for that audit. You have 90 days in order to complete the audit process, and once you submit the information to them, once they receive it, they take about 5 to 7 days to review it. If you don't get audited or you get approved after your audit, then you will receive an email from PMI with your application ID on it and with instructions on how to schedule your exam through the Pearson VUE website. You have up to 1 year in which to take your exam. I highly recommend you don't take a year, however, but you have up to 1 year off that base application. And you have up to 3 attempts off of the base application as well. So if you weren't successful on the first attempt or the second attempt, you have a 3rd attempt. If you're not successful after 3 attempts, then there is a waiting period before you can reapply and you start the process over again. Once you sit for and pass the PMP exam, then you are PMP certified. That's the last piece in the certification process, and the certification cycle begins then. You are PMP certified for a total of 3 years, and over that 3 years, that 36-month time frame, you need to then start the recertification. And to recertify, you need 60 professional development units, PDUs. I will do another video concerning the recertification process itself, so I will not cover that here. But once you've completed the recertification process, you then will file your paperwork and submit the recertification fee, and your three-year cycle begins again. If the 3-year cycle passes and you did not renew, then you have a suspended certification. You can have a suspended certification for up to 1 year. After 1 year, if you do not renew, then your certification has expired. And if you want to become PMP certified after that, then you need to start the whole process over again. So bottom line, once you become PMP certified, you want to stay on top of the recertification so you don't have to go through the exam a second time. The application has been streamlined, and it's a lot of pull downs now. So they will ask you for information about your academic education. They'll ask you for information about your professional education, and they'll ask you for information about your experience. And what they're doing now is asking for when did you start working on the project and when did you finish working on the project. You do not need to post your hours in the original base application. If you get audited, then they will request information about the number of hours you spent working on projects. They're also curious about which methodology you were using on the project, whether it was predictive, whether it was adaptive agile, or whether it was hybrid. That does not pertain to a minimum. So you could do all of your projects in the predictive world, and that's fine. You could do all your projects in an agile world, that's fine. They're just doing that for information gathering and analysis purposes. The 35 hours of training that are necessary, I highly recommend that you take some sort of PMP prep course or advanced project management courses to prepare you for the exam. However, any project management training can be applied to the 35 hours. If you took a university college course 15 years ago that covered project management, those hours can also be included against the 35 hours. There's no time limit for this, so if you took the course 15 years ago or 20 years ago, that still counts. As far as the costs for the PMP, if you're a PMI member, then the exam is $405 USD. If you're a non-member, then the exam cost is $555 USD. Membership costs, I believe, is $129 plus a $10 one-time application fee, so a total of $139. Compare that to the $150 you save, it nets out to about $11 savings. But there are other benefits to being a PMI member besides the discount on the PMP exam. If for some reason you were unsuccessful in passing the exam on the first attempt, there is an additional fee for the retake and a smaller application, simpler application that you have to go through. But the object of the game is to pass the PMP on the first attempt. So we're not going to talk about the re-exam all that much. As I mentioned, approximately 10% of the applications are audited. It's a random audit. If you are one of the lucky ones to be audited, you will receive an email from PMI that outlines the information and the process that you need to follow to meet the terms of the audit. Basically, what you'll need to do is have the person that you put on the application as your reference for that project sign off that you did what you said you did and you spent the amount of time, months, and hours that you did. PMI will not contact the person directly. They put that burden on you to gather the signatures against the verification paperwork. You'll need to take that along with copies of your diplomas or equivalent and copies of your training certificates. Put all of that into a single envelope and send that in to PMI at the address they give you in the email. Once they receive the envelope, it takes them about 5 to 7 days to review it, and then you'll get an email back indicating that either you passed the audit and here's your approval code to schedule your exam, or they'll ask for additional information for the audit itself. You have a total of 90 days in order to submit the documentation. And please submit all of the documentation at one time in a single envelope. PMI will not review partial documentation. Once you have been approved, you have up to 1 year to take the PMP exam. I highly recommend that you don't delay that amount of time. Procrastination becomes your biggest enemy for the PMP process. So I highly recommend that you schedule your exam within 30 to 60 days of completing if you took a training course in one way or another. But you know how long you need to study the materials and take the sample exams, etc. And they'll give you the web link to schedule the exam. You'll use your PMI eligibility ID in order to schedule the exam on the Pearson VUE website. As I mentioned before, if you were not successful in your first attempt, you have up to 3 attempts off of the base application. There is a minor reapplication that you have to complete, but it's not nearly as extensive as the primary application. Once you schedule your exam, it's highly advised that you develop a plan on how you're going to achieve your PMP certification and follow that plan and sit for the exam and pass it. But if for some reason you need to reschedule your exam and it's greater than 30 days from your exam, there is no charge for rescheduling the exam. If you're within the 30-day window of the exam date, then there is a $70 charge to reschedule the exam. If you're within 48 hours of your exam date and time, then you will forfeit the entire exam fee if you do not show up for the exam. So it's highly suggested, my suggestion is that you schedule the exam for about 45 days out, and within the next week or two you'll get a pretty good feeling as to whether or not that's going to be a good date or not. So if you do have to reschedule, you're at least 30 days out. But please don't keep procrastinating and pushing the date out, because that's not going to be beneficial at all. On PMI's website, you can download the PMP Handbook, and the handbook provides all of the information around the application process and the prerequisites that you need to meet in order to become PMP certified. If you're off on some website and they tell you information that contradicts what PMI has in the PMP Handbook, then the PMP Handbook is correct. There are websites out there that are misconstruing the information as far as the prerequisites necessary to sit for the PMP exam. So I always point people to the PMP Handbook as the final word. I want to thank you for your time. I hope this helped to answer your questions as far as the prerequisites to take the PMP exam and the application process. Good luck, and I hope to see you on another video.